Chasing the Mind, podcast number 9, Sweet Reality with Laura Heffernan. Welcome to Chasing the Mind, hosted by Dr. Angela Johnson and Dr. Stephanie Schwartz, the podcast that explores the art and science of the mind. Each episode, we will feature a topic or guest who offers a unique perspective in answering the following questions. How do our thoughts influence our sense of who we are? How do we impact the world around us? And can changing our minds change everything? Today on Chasing the Mind, Dr. Angela and Dr. Stephanie will talk to Laura Heffernan, author and reality show junkie.
Hey, Dr. Stephanie.
Hi, Dr. Angela.
So here we are for another episode of Chasing the Mind.
We sure are.
And we haven't even started drinking yet. That's what's funny.
Wait a minute. I have 2 iced teas.
That doesn't count. Well, I don't have any wine. It's really more the issue.
Yeah, no.
So one of the things we've been talking about with some of our listeners and some of the feedback we've gotten is that people really like us answering questions about psychological topics.
Yeah, whether it be issues they have in their lives or people they know or all manner of psychological disorders and concepts.
Yeah, so we have had people ask us questions about PTSD and psychopaths and self-care and all sorts of really great questions about these things. And, you know, we don't always have a guest that's going to address every single question that we're getting.
That is true. So are people aware that we will be doing talkback episodes?
Well, that's one thing we have to cover today. So we are going to be having our second talk back a week from today is Friday the 8th. Yeah, so our next episode will be a talk back episode where we will take questions from our listeners. And I think, as I said in the intro to the last episode, those questions can be about a psychological topic you're interested in. It could be a personal situation that you're going through or that someone you know is going through, but there's a caveat.
We want people to know we are not your psychotherapist. And so if you need a psychotherapist, first of all, find one. There are many qualified people in your area. And so we will give sort of general advice and general information, but it's not specific therapy for anyone.
That's right. Don't get therapy from a podcast.
No.
That's probably not a good idea. And just because we answer your question, obviously we don't have a relationship with you as your therapist, but still, as Dr. Stephanie said, we can provide general information about anything that you present to us, and we may be able to even recommend some great resources to help you find out more information on your own or get the support that you need.
Where do you send these important questions that we will be answering, Dr. Angela?
Well, you can email us at info@chasingthemind.com. You can go to our website, and I think there's a direct link to email us. You can go to our Facebook page, which is Chasing the Mind. You can tweet us at Chasing the Mind.
I believe that is, yes, at Chasing the Mind.
Yes. Dr. Stephanie and I have also talked about the fact that so we get these great questions. People want to know more about different psychological topics. And like I said, we don't always necessarily have a guest for every single question that people have. So one of the things we're discussing is expanding the show a little bit. So we still want to bring you those great interviews, those interesting guests that are talking about their life experience or bringing some expertise about a particular topic. But we thought that in front of every episode, Dr. Stephanie and I might present or talk about a particular topic in psychology in more depth. And that way we can make sure we're covering some of those areas that people are really, really interested in, even if we don't have a guest for it. Because, you know, we have doctorates. We have doctorates in psychology.
We can use them.
Yes. So that is one thing we are going to start doing. And another thing we thought might be fun is what, Dr. Stephanie?
Well, We talked about the Goldwater rule and the fact that it's not really ethical to diagnose people that you have not met and evaluated personally. This does not hold true for fictional characters.
That is true.
So
you can't really meet them necessarily.
That's true.
Right. So for this round, we're going to go with movies. So if you want us to diagnose a particular movie, look at the psychological issues that might be there, a particular character in that movie, then you need to tweet us
at Chasing the Mind, #DiagnoseThisMovie.
It's going to be a regular feature of our show. You know what's interesting is that when I went to graduate school for my master's program, this was actually part of how they taught us diagnoses.
Oh, really?
They, when we started to do our psychopathology class, one of the ways that we started to figure out, okay, well, what does this particular disorder look like? We would look in the media to see if we could find examples.
So I actually have a story about this. I went on a graduate school interview, and it was sort of a long trip down to New York State, and in a blizzard, I might add. It was not an easy trip, and it was an ordeal to get there. It was one of these where we were driving in the blizzard, and I'm like with my friend Caroline, and she's like, I said, "Are we driving to New York? Are you sure we're going the right way?" And she said yes. And I'm like, "Why does it say welcome to Vermont?" It was a whole ordeal. I just want to clarify that to give you some color. And so we get there, and only a few of us had made it to this group interview. And they decided that one of the things we would do would be an essay. Like, surprise, you've driven in the snow. Why don't you do an essay? Okay, fine. So the essay was to discuss the psychological aspects of a movie. So we didn't talk about it, but I talked to some of the people afterwards, and everybody picked these really, I'm going to be rude and say cliche psychological movies. They did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Oh my gosh, there's psychological implications of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Who knew? It's a whole movie about a psych ward. Or someone else did, I think it's called 28 Days, not the one with the zombies.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, the one with Sandra Bullock, right, where she's in a rehab.
Right.
Yeah, rehab.
Which is really a fantasy because nobody gets to go to rehab for 28 days.
They sure do if they pay out of pocket.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, there's some lovely ones I've heard in Florida, right on the beach and everything. Anyhow, so everybody was like, "So, Stephanie, what did you do?" Because, of course, at the time I was not Dr. Stephanie. And I said, "I did Groundhog Day." And people were like, "Why did you do Groundhog Day?" And I was like, well, first of all, there's a concept in psychology called repetition compulsion, whereby these conflicts that we have not fully worked through, we continue to act them out. So one example would be people sort of hooking up with the same type of bad romantic partner time after time after time. Issues like that, where people sort of remake the same mistakes. And what is it in Groundhog Day but the same day happening over and over again, and sort of the literal working out of this repetition compulsion? And also in psychology, there's a concept called working through, which is you work through the same thing and discuss the same thing over and over until you can work through the conflict to a more positive and healthful resolution, as opposed to having it end the same way over and over again. And everybody sort of looked at me. And let me tell you, the actual people at the graduate program ate it up with a spoon.
Are you kidding? She used a Freudian concept in her essay, and she hasn't even gone here yet.
Exactly. She used two Freudian concepts, and she didn't write like everybody else who's ever done this essay about, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's a new movie we get to read about. They were thrilled, and I sure got into that graduate school.
And you didn't go there?
I did not go there, actually.
See, listeners, that's the kind of deep, insightful reflections that Freudian concepts about, Groundhog Day.
And movies about rodents predicting the weather.
We could do a whole show just on What About Bob? Baby steps.
Oh, baby steps out the office. Baby steps out the door. Oh my God, that movie. And then how, what's his name? That guy with the blue eyes.
Dreyfuss?
Richard Dreyfuss. And then he names his kids Sigmund and Anna.
Oh my God. And then they have to do the puppets.
The little puppet.
Oh my Lord.
That movie.
That is like, now you want to do like family systems therapy of everything that to do wrong as a parent, like pretty much communicating to your children through puppets.
Yeah.
Not great in terms of like secure attachment right there.
He really needed the help of Bob.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
It just goes to show that sometimes the healers are crazier than the patients.
Wow. And that is part of why we do this podcast, because
we're working through our own stuff.
No, I was more thinking because we're some of the more fun psychologists. We do not take ourselves super seriously. Like, we can be humorous. Sometimes you get a room of psychologists and some of the room is kind of fun and some of the room kind of is not and is taking itself a teensy-toonsy tad too seriously.
That is true. And actually, on that note, so before we kick it over to our amazing interview that we had with Laura Heffernan, author of Sweet Reality, I will tell you that we had a great time talking to her about reality TV, which for many people is just an indulgence, guilty pleasure that they enjoy so much. And we have a great time talking to her about that.
I still think you can tell a lot about people from what type of reality TV they watch.
Yeah, but she loves everything.
She does, which is really unique.
Yeah, but I think that's what probably helps her as an author, because she can see, a lot of different perspectives. And that's kind of what you have to do as an author, right?
So, Dr. Angela, did we talk about what our favorite types of reality TV are when we interviewed her?
You did. You said that you liked the ones where they do something.
Yeah.
So that comes up in the interview. I didn't really talk about mine. Mine are more like the cooking shows. I like...
So similar.
Yeah, Top Chef and...
Chopped.
I don't like Chopped as much. I think Chopped... no, I don't really want to see anybody do anything with sardines and kicks. It just,
I've actually learned a lot, though. I mean, there are some foods that I was unfamiliar with. Huitlacoche. I mean, corn must, which is, a fungus that grows on corn and very prized food in Mexico. I learned about it on Chopped, and now I am knowledgeable about it. I've never eaten it, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just not my favorite one. I like Top Chef, and I like Project Runway. I haven't seen it in a couple of seasons, actually.
It's funny, I was watching Chopped the other night, and I was looking at the listing on the TV, and it said season 35.
Wow.
And so, because they do several seasons a year.
Right.
They do, they just sort of continuously film it because it's such a hit. But yeah, can you believe that? Season 35? Because I remember when there was no Chopped. I remember when Ted Allen was on Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
I liked that too. That was a fun show. Actually, that was a reality show.
It was.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. Although, after a while, it was kind of like, all right, we've seen like the guy get a shave and propose to his girlfriend. Enough, So.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with a lot of reality shows. I think sometimes they're really interesting for a while, and then the shtick gets kind of old, and maybe that's why shows like Chopped, like I watch it for a while, and then I'll stop watching it for a while, and then or.
Speaking of Queer Eye, though, another cooking show that I watch is Worst Cook in America, and like Carson Kressley is on it.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah, no, he's on it, and his lips look weird. I wonder
why is he? He doesn't know anything about cooking, does he?
It's called Worst Cooks in America.
Oh, the star like he's one of the star.
He's one of
they're doing a star version,
a celebrity version.
Oh,
well, you're really behind on your Worst Cooks.
I have 2 children. I don't watch anything. I'm like, so we talked to Laura Heffernan, and I got to read 2 books for fun because I got to say it was work. So but that's
yeah.
it.
No, anyways, they are our celebrity editions, and he is one of the worst cooks.
Well, listeners, before you turn us off to go watch, apparently, to binge watch Worst Cooks on demand, please listen to this great interview with Laura Heffernan, and also make sure to send us your questions. And you might want to stay on until after the music, because there's a little bit of an outtake of our conversation with Laura that I kind of said was off the record and then decided it was too funny. So there you go. Enjoy our interview with Laura Heffernan. And we are here with Laura Heffernan, amazing author of the new book coming out next week, Sweet Reality. Laura, say hi.
Hi.
All right. So first, I have to say, we've known Laura for a while. I did not know that you were such a reality junkie.
Well, so a lot of people look down on reality TV, so it's not something you would normally walk around advertising that you watch, especially in intellectual circles. So I don't tend to talk about it much. But then when I started writing the book, then I realized, hey, there's a lot of reality TV fans out there.
There really are. And I think there's a lot of reality content. There's been a sort of an explosion of reality shows. I think some of it started, I don't know, at the time of the writer's strike some years ago. And they needed something to fill the airways. So they started with quote unquote unscripted shows that were highly produced but unscripted.
That's really a lot of it. When the writers went on strike, the network still wanted to put something on TV. There's no shortage of people who want to be on reality TV. You turn on the first episode of American Idol anytime and you'll see that. There's millions of people who want to do this. So, and we do it for free or very, very cheap. Scripted shows, you have to pay the actors, you have to pay the writers. With reality TV, you still have a couple of writers, but it's not nearly the same scale. So it's cheaper for them, the reality stars, I guess. They're not union, so you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. It's very different, much cheaper, very easy.
So what are your reality show favorites, or what draws you in?
My all-time favorite is probably RuPaul's Drag Race. I really love that show. It's funny. The lip syncing is good. I like the dancing. It's always different. And I like getting a peek at a world that I'm not a part of. But I watch everything. I like Naked and Afraid.
Oh, what's that? I'm not familiar with that one.
Naked and Afraid is where they take two strangers and drop them in a random location. It could be anywhere in the world. Sometimes it's the jungle. Sometimes it's the forest. I've seen them in Canada. I've seen them in the swamps of Florida. And they are left for 21 days. They have one item and a map. And they are naked. And they have to survive. And at the end of the 3 weeks, they have to travel over some distance to an extraction point where a helicopter will meet them. And they're still naked. It's fascinating, actually, to watch the interactions with people when you take their clothes away and they're forced to live off the land and survive.
What do people usually take as their one item?
I think there's a list they get to pick from. A lot of times it'll be a pot or a fire starter, which smart. Some people will bring a machete or their favorite knife, something to help them, kill food.
See, I think for me, it would have to be a bottle of tequila. Like, that's the only way I would do a show like that. I'd have to be, so drunk. It would be ridiculous. But,
You couldn't even pay me to do that show, but I love watching it.
Interesting. That kind of reminds me of, I heard a story on NPR about a Japanese game show where somebody was left naked and with nothing in an apartment for months and months, and he had to spend all day sending away for contest items, and he could only have items that he won. I think he had some very basic food, like a small amount of rice, but minimal food, no clothing. And he had to get what he could by sending away for these sweepstakes and contests and survive.
I would absolutely watch that. No question.
So what do you think is the draw for people to watch these kinds of things? Because, as we were saying, they're technically unscripted, but I think we're all in on it, right? We all know that some of it is kind of scripted and manipulated, and the contestants know and we know, and yet we watch it.
I started with shows like Average Joe, where there was a twist that only the audience knew about, until they sprang it on the contestants later. Or Paradise Hotel, where it was always changing. And I liked watching the twists and turns. That's kind of how I started getting hooked. Then I found Top Chef. And hey, I can cook. I couldn't make anything before I started watching Top Chef. But now, the more I would watch it, it would be like, oh, that doesn't look that difficult. Wait, that doesn't look that difficult either. And so I watch a lot of cooking shows now for ideas, just to see what flavors work, things like that. So that's part of it. But I think there's also just everyone's got their inner voyeur. You want to see everyone else's dirty laundry. We like to gossip. We like to know what other people are doing. And when they put it on TV, it's fun to get that little peek into someone else's world. I would never go to a jungle and try to live for 3 weeks. But watching someone else do it is kind of cool.
Right. Which is probably different from the reasons than you watch something like a cooking show where, like, they make a balsamic reduction over a piece of fish. And you're like, I might actually do that.
Yes. And also, even, like, The Bachelorette, you like watching people fall in love. It's the same reason we read romance novels. It's the same reason we go to the movies. It's even though it's real people, there's still a story there, and you're still rooting for them, hoping that they can live happily ever after.
I think there are a lot of differences, though. I feel like there's such a wide range now of shows that perhaps there are, different audiences and different reasons that people watch different shows. So, for example, some are centered on a skill. Like, I love shows like Face Off, where they're comparing movie makeup.
Yes.
Or Project Runway, where they are making clothing. And I'm less pulled in by shows that are centered in by the interpersonal drama, like The Bachelorette or something like that. So it sounds like you're a junkie enough to watch a really wide range.
I really do. I've at least seen one episode of so many different shows. I love Married at First Sight and Are You the One, and those types of strangers trying to find love. I really like love. You probably could tell. I write romance novels. I like love. It's a nice thing. It's a happy thing. But I also like shows like Bar Rescue or Kitchen Nightmares, where they're trying to save a struggling business owner so they can make it on their own. Because, who doesn't love a good underdog story,
Well, so tell us about that. So tell us about the inspiration for your romance trilogy.
About 5 years ago, I got an email from my best friend that was, hey, did you see they're casting a reality show in Boston? And I said, no, because I'm a reader. I would never have even thought about going on a reality show. But I said, what is it? Let me see. And so she forwarded it to me, and they said they were looking for smart people to be on a show about putting people in a house and watching how they interact. And she thought it sounded like the coolest thing in the world, and I thought it sounded horrifying, but if she needed somebody to stand in line with her, I could go. Well, she applied, I didn't, and she wound up getting an interview. So when she got cast on the show, it was really interesting to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff, the contracts they send you, the secret interviews that she flew out there for, all the stuff that she would talk about. And in this particular show, one of the ideas was the audience was controlling the viewers. People had to vote on what they wanted. They would have polls online, or you could go and vote, and you were voting on everything from who you wanted to stay to what you wanted them to eat to what you wanted them to wear, all kinds of stuff. So we wanted our friend to win, and every week the person with the least votes would be up for elimination. We were out there trying to get her votes, watching the shows, reading the forums, interacting with people. Like, I lived and breathed that show for weeks.
I remember that summer and doing all that. And for whatever reason, I think I was sick or something like that. So I was spending a lot of time as well. And I remember this one challenge where they wanted people to vote on what kind of salad the contestants should stir with their feet. Like, was it egg salad, tuna salad, or like macaroni salad?
I still remember how appalled you got at that request and how much you didn't want to vote for them to stir any salad with their feet.
I'm like, I don't need to see people stirring egg salad with their feet. Or it's disgusting. That is not good television or good anything.
For me, when I was voting, a lot of it was, well, what is the least weird for Steph to have to do? Or what would Stephanie be the best at in this? But yeah, I don't think she wound up having to stir the salad with her feet, so that was good. It was an interesting show.
So, Laura, tell us how you walked away from that experience with helping your friend on a reality show and decided, hey, I'm going to write a romance novel about that.
Well, there were a couple of things that really came together. When the show started, I started blogging about the episodes, just recaps, just what had happened. And it was trying to subtly encourage people to vote the way I wanted them to. But it was also just about letting people know what happened on the show if they missed it. Because the more people who watch the show, theoretically, the better for Stephanie. That was the idea. But what happened is people really enjoyed the recaps. People were telling me that they liked them better than they liked the show, that they would rather read my recap than watch the show, which may be more reflection on the show than my writing style. I don't know. But it was, it was so interesting to see, like, hey, I can write things that people like to read. They like my voice. They like the way I phrase things. And that kind of gave me a boost that helped. So everybody always says they're going to write a book someday, right? That's in the back of everyone's head. I could write a book. Well, I don't have time. But when I went back and looked at the hours I spent on this blog and the hours I spent on the show in general, clearly I had the time if I just wanted to prioritize it. And I went back and I looked at, all the blogs I wrote. It was a lot of words. It wasn't a book, but it was a lot of words. So I think the combination of saying, you know what, I can do this. I can write a book. With, hey, this really interesting thing just happened, and now I have all this behind-the-scenes insight, kind of combined to, well, what kind of reality show would I think would be fun? What would I want to do if I were on a reality show?
And so your first book was called America's Next Reality Star, and that was kind of a little bit of the experience that your friend had had, but then also creating this romantic story arc.
Right. The first book is loosely inspired by Stephanie's experience. There's some stuff in there. I had a friend who appeared on MasterChef, and there's a bit of her experiences kind of woven in there, too. Justin is a creation. He's completely a figment of my imagination.
And Justin is a romantic character in the book.
He's the lead character.
Justin is the love interest, yes. He and Jen are the focus of all three books in the series.
And in the book, like you said, it's this sort of combination of a bunch of different reality shows, and you've created a number of the archetypes you see in typical reality shows.
Right. I made an effort to pull from personality types. You always have that obnoxious guy, that Puck character, the one that everybody just wants to get rid of. There's always the beautiful girl who's just unreal. So, someone you never see anyone that good looking in your real life, but somehow she exists, and there she is on the TV. There's always the girl next door. There's usually some smart, nerdy person. So I tried to pull from that. The other characters in the book aren't based on the people who were on my friend's show. They're just people that I made up who I thought would be interesting to help flesh out the cast. I know some people who were on Stephanie's season who do think that characters were inspired by or based on them, but these people were chosen to portray a certain role on a reality show. And then when I created rules, they just wind up being similar.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's fascinating to see how you can turn on any show of a group of people and you're always going to see the same personality types.
Well, and actually, Dr. Stephanie and I were talking about this, we're preparing, and one of the things we talked about was this idea that, maybe Jung was right, and there are these sort of universal archetypes that exist because you kind of see them in every kind of literature going back to like ancient Greece. You see them in, everything we kind of create has these kinds of characters, the hero, the anti-hero, the maiden, the siren. Like there's always this kind of panoply of characters, and it's like there must be something in our little lizard brains that just keeps creating these for some reason, because we take comfort in it, or somehow we feel like it captures our story. I don't know, but it's just interesting because it's in everything.
That is really interesting. And it is funny just to see, even in your own life, you see people who sometimes fit those molds. So maybe you was onto something.
So tell us a little bit about the process of after you finish the book. How did you go about getting representation and getting published?
I wrote it pretty quickly, actually, which isn't necessarily recommended because it takes much longer to edit that way. But I did. I wrote it in about 6 weeks, and then I edited it, and I found someone to swap with. It really helps to just read someone else's work. It's funny, you don't think about it, but reading what somebody else did and seeing their mistakes helps you identify similar mistakes in your work. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I started querying agents much sooner than I should have. The book really wasn't ready. It's a common mistake. Everybody does it. But in that process, when you're querying and you're getting the rejections and you're swapping with people, that kind of helps you see where you need to go. And so I wound up revising many times, and I got an offer from an agent about 7 months later. And I wound up getting another offer from a different agent. That's who I decided to sign with. Just after talking to both of them, I liked the direction she wanted to take the book in a little bit more. And we got along really well. After I got an agent, then we revised again and again. There's a lot of revision. And then she started sending the book out to editors with the big five, Random House, Macmillan, the big publishers. And then about 3-4 months later, my agent stopped agenting. So she wasn't going to... I got an email that... Right. It happens with newer agents, unfortunately, because the job it's mostly commission-based, and it takes time to make the sales and build up your authors and your checks. And
interesting.
So I got a message that she was going to be stepping down from her role, but another agent at the same agency had agreed to represent me instead. And that's ultimately how I wound up with my agent, Michelle. She's at the same agency where I started, and she's the one who sold my book about a year later. So it takes a long time. It was a 1.5 years from when I signed with my agent to when I got the contract.
At what point did you decide to move from having this one book to doing a trilogy?
I think when you write a book, it's always in the back of your mind, what else can I do with these characters? Because you get attached to them. You spend a lot of time with them. You feel like they're your friends. You know them. And so I started writing a sequel probably like a month after I finished. I don't even think I'd finished editing the first book when I started working on a sequel. Now that will never see the light of day, and that's not at all what you have read in Sweet Reality. But it is really natural to want to just stick with the familiar. Mm-hmm. My publisher prefers trilogies, so after they made the offer on the one book, they came back and said, can you make this a series? Can you send us some ideas for 2 more books? And that was when I started thinking about other types of reality shows that I could do and what other fun I could have with the characters. Sweet Reality isn't based on anybody's experiences. It's just me talking about how much I love cupcakes, largely.
We should talk a little bit about the new book. In the first book, we have these characters getting together, this Jen and Justin, and then give us a little teaser about the second book.
Well, in the second book, the network decides to do a reunion show. So they bring back a lot of the characters from the Fishbowl, the first show, and they bring characters from their other reality shows, all of which I have made up. And they put them on a cruise just to see what happens. It's a reality show that's much more almost like a Real Housewives type, where you're watching what people are doing and they're not really trying to achieve any challenges or anything. So there's always drama on reality TV, of course, and the network interferes, and there's producers and everything. And so Jen and Justin's relationship gets tested over the course of the book.
Now, we don't want to reveal any spoilers, but there are definitely some unexpected and emotion-pulling twists and turns, whether those emotions be humor or disgust, or I'll be honest. But there's but definitely some unexpected things that happen that maybe are a little atypical for a romance genre.
These books have always trended more romantic comedy than straight romance. And so part of comedy is that element of surprise or element of disgust or relief or whatever, throwing in the unexpected to get a reaction. So I think I had a little bit more freedom because of the genre than if I had just written a contemporary romance. And I like surprising people, so I really like the way romantic comedy lets me put in twists and turns. You'll see that in the third book, too. And even the first book has a couple of twists. So I like throwing in the unexpected.
I do think that romantic comedy captures it better than romance because, when I wanted to interview you, I read both the books. And romance is not particularly something that I tend to gravitate toward, but I really did enjoy your books because they were funny. In some ways, Jen, can remind you of kind of like a geeky Lucille Ball kind of person who, despite everything she's trying to do, like the candy keeps coming down the factory line too fast for her, so she has these moments where it's like she's really trying and she's doing everything right. And it just all goes to beep, it's just, and those moments are really funny. They're also frustrating, and you get frustrated for her. But I think those are the moments that really kind of make it much more entertaining than just two people who are falling in love.
Isn't that just how life goes? You're standing there at a conveyor belt trying to do your thing, and no matter what happens, more keeps coming at you. We all have those days. I think we need to be able to laugh about that.
Yeah, and especially on the boat, because they couldn't escape it, right? I mean, they're on a boat. So it's like no matter, it's not like we can just go, we're done, we quit, nope. We're done. It's like, no, they have to stick it out for the whole thing.
There's no leaving that boat. And that's one of the reasons they're on a cruise.
Well, that's a good thing as an author. Keep your characters there, right? I also liked some of the transitions you do in the book, chapter to chapter, kind of like the little asides or the little articles that you do that are or the TV clips, that was very clever too.
Thank you. So I wanted it to really feel like people were watching a reality show. It's kind of a thin line that you're walking, right? Because you want people who like reality TV and people who like books, and there's some overlap there. But I did like being able to get into what other characters are thinking. And with the confessionals, you get a lot more of that because the books are just from Jen's point of view, and that can be a little limiting sometimes. It's nice to be able to get out there and get into somebody else's head.
It's interesting because Dr. Angela mentioned a bit ago that sort of everybody knows that there's a lot of manipulation and things like that go on behind the scenes. And I'm not convinced of that. I think some people are very familiar with that idea, and some people think it's just reality. Have you ever watched a TV show called Unreal?
That is my favorite show. I'm so sad that it's not coming back for another 6 months.
It is or is not?
It's not coming back till January. I guess it's not 6 months anymore.
Oh, no.
But when I first heard the news that they renewed, I got so excited. Oh, Unreal's coming back. And then I saw the date and I said, what?
For those of our listeners who haven't watched it, it is a show about the behind-the-scenes process of making a reality show that is very similar to a Bachelor or Bachelorette type show, and the sort of drama of the behind the scenes. So I'm wondering if bringing that to readers is what drove you in how you describe what goes on in your books.
I wrote the first book before Unreal had come out, so I didn't know that. When I first thought, I was like, oh, great, cross-marketing. Yeah, Lifetime doesn't really need to cross-market with me, but that's okay, because I drive readers to them, so maybe someday. Yeah, the more I watch the show, the more I see how far I can push things. And that's probably where you get some of the scenes in Sweet Reality that are more surprising than what you would expect in a typical romance.
Any reality show is very much a heightened emotional situation.
Absolutely. And I do read interviews with contestants after. I do, not everything, obviously, but, at the end of Married at First Sight, I'll check to see who's still together. Or I used to watch The Biggest Loser, and I've read a lot of articles from former contestants that talk about that experience. And when you put all that together, that's when you start to see kind of, okay, what they're showing us isn't really real. And talking to people who've done the shows helps with that, too.
So Sweet Reality comes out next week.
Yes, it is being released on Tuesday.
The show will air on Friday, but so the book will be out, listeners. When you listen to this podcast, the book will be out. You can go get it on our webpage or on Amazon.
Read it.
Yes, it is good. No, it is. It's very good. I liked it a lot better than the first one. Honestly, the crazy stuff that happens on the ship is it's really worth the read. What about the third installment? Have you started on that?
The third book is actually completely finished.
Oh, wow.
There is a sneak peek chapter in the back of Sweet Reality. So I guess I can tell you by the time this airs, it will be out there. So the third book is called Reality Wedding.
A good reality show often involves a wedding.
I watched so many wedding dress shows and preparing to write that book, but that was a lot of fun. It's done. We'll be releasing the cover on Kensington's blog later this month, and I'll also be sharing it with my reader group a couple of days ahead of time, so they'll get a sneak peek. It'll be available for pre-order. Actually, no, it's already up for pre-order. That book is a lot of fun. And that is actually probably my favorite of the three books.
Wow. So what's next for you? I mean, after you've completed these books, are you still in love with these characters and going to continue on? Will your next projects be about a new set of characters?
I do love the characters, but I also hit a point where I think, you poor things, you've suffered so much.
Letting them go might be an act of love at this point.
Right. So I'm ready to put poor Jen and Justin aside. I am open to writing companion books later on. I do have an idea for a book involving Danielle, who appears in Sweet Reality. There are a couple of other characters in the first and third books that I could consider giving their own book. Even Rachel. Rachel's one of my favorite characters.
I love Rachel. I love
She just has so
Rachel.
much growth, and she's so interesting to me because you think she's just this dumb cheerleader, and she's not. She's so much more. So I thought about that. But my next series is already contracted. It's coming out in November 2019, and it is the Gamer Girl series. The first book is about two board gamers who fall in love at a tournament.
Ooh.
That takes place over... the tournament takes place in several cities over the course of a few months.
Well, that's interesting because now we have a peek into one of your other passions and pursuits.
I do like the games. Anybody who read the books and sees how much Jen talks about loving games and puzzles is probably not surprised that I decided to go with the board game series next.
So two things that come up with doing the romance. One is people who read the first book. I noticed that you're a little bit chaste in your books. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, a little bit.
Honestly, I appreciate it because I don't need to read that, but I think it's a decision you have to make, right, when you're writing these kinds of books.
How graphic do you want to be?
I guess to me it comes down to one very simple fact, and that is that my mom is going to be reading these books. And I know romance writers whose mothers read their books. I know a friend of mine put in her dedication, "Dear Dad, this book is for you. Please don't read chapters 3, 17, and 27. That's great. I just can't do it. I would be open to maybe someday writing. I love books with open door sex scenes. I read them all the time. A lot of my friends write them. I love those books, and I would be open to it maybe someday under a pen name. But please don't tell my mom.
I know that another of your interests and maybe passions is pole fitness.
I do love pole fitness. To me, it was the first time that I found a workout that was interesting and enjoyable and that I wanted to keep doing. I like watching how much stronger I get, and I like doing the tricks, the flips. It's amazing how you can do pole for a bit, and then you go to pick up your groceries, and you're like, hey, that's really easy. Little things. Carrying small children, just everything. I was pretty weak before because I have tendonitis. So I went from having the strength of a small child to actually being able to hold myself up in the air. And that's just a really powerful feeling, just to see what you can do. I have actually written a manuscript involving somebody who does pole fitness. It is women's fiction. It's not a romance. It's very early on, so I really can't tell you what's going to happen with that.
How do you handle the discipline of writing? What would be your tips?
I think my biggest tip is that it's okay if you don't write every day. And I say that because a lot of people are out there saying, you have to write every day or you're not a writer. That's the only way to do it. And I feel like it's a really privileged way to look at things. Despite the pole fitness, I still have tendonitis. I still have days where I'm in pain, where I can't go anywhere near a keyboard. I'm still a writer if I don't write for 3 days. And I'm still a writer if I have to work 3 jobs and I can only write on the weekends because I'm trying to feed my family. So listen to what's out there, but don't take other people's advice as gospel. Don't think that you have to write a certain way. There's no one way. If you're typing on your phone while you're sitting on the bus, you're a writer. And if you're sketching in a notebook anytime you can, whatever you're doing, you're a writer. You don't have to have a set schedule. But if you do, that's great. If that works for you, absolutely go with it. But don't look at what other people are doing and make yourself feel bad. Just keep your eyes on your own work and do what works for you.
That's great advice, because that is the first thing you hear all the time is you have to write every day. Sometimes there's I got to go to the grocery store today.
I feel like that's also a bit oversimplified. I haven't written in probably about 2 months, but you know what I have done? I've gone to writing conferences. I've edited books that I've finished. I've critiqued a writing contest for other people where I help new writers. I've swapped work with other people. I've outlined a new story. I've done so many things. I've written blogs. I've done a lot of stuff the past couple of months to help my career that have nothing to do with sitting down and putting words on the page. And none of that makes me less of a writer. The wheels are turning.
Well, yeah, and I think it misses 2 really important points, which is one, like you said, writing is not just, sitting under an oak tree being inspired. I mean, it's a whole business. You have to edit, you have to revise, you have to go out there and find these people who are willing to support you and promote you. That takes time. And 2, part of it is you have to live life, because that's also what provides the inspiration.
And like you said, sometimes you have to go to the grocery store. If my choices are, do I want to eat or do I want to write today? Well, I really like food. And it's
And you said cupcakes in particular.
Yes, cupcakes.
I do. I love cupcakes. Oh, I had so much fun with Sweet Reality and coming up with cupcake recipes. And I mostly Googled those. I got some from TV. I got a couple of things that I've made, but I had a lot of fun.
Did you call it research every time you ate one?
Yes. Of course it's research. I have to know if it would taste good before I put it in the book.
So are you Jen Sweet Tooth? That's all you? That's biographical?
Well, she's much more adventurous than I am. I like chocolate. It's weird because I like a wide variety of stuff, but I can say no to anything but chocolate, and I don't really like to mix it with anything except maybe a little bit of caramel.
What would you like potential readers to know before picking up these books?
You don't have to read America's Next Reality Star before picking up Sweet Reality. I think it is possible to read and enjoy it as a standalone, and I wrote it that way on purpose. But it does help if you have the time and the interest. I actually had a couple of friends that I asked to read it for me, and they had to read the first one first. They don't like reading books out of order, and I understand I'm the same way.
That was me. I had to go download it on Kindle, and I was up because with 2 kids, I don't read for pleasure. That doesn't happen. So yeah, I had to download it and tear through that one really quickly before I read the second one, because I'm like, I have to read in order.
Well, if people want to read all 3, yay, that makes me really happy.
Well, Laura, before we leave today, I want you to tell all of our listeners where they can find you.
You can find me on www.lauraheffernan.com. That's my website. That has links to everything. If you like reading my thoughts on reality TV and baked goods, I spend way too much time on Twitter. I am at LH_Wright. And I also am on Facebook, Laura Heffernan Books. I have a reader group there. Like I said before, people want to sneak peeks at what's coming out, some special giveaways that are just for those people, things like that. Little behind-the-scenes looks.
Terrific. Well, I think our listeners are going to be very excited to pick these up.
Yes, and we'll have all the links to everything on our website in the show notes. You'll be able to click right there and buy Sweet Reality. It's really fun, so you'll really enjoy it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to Chasing the Mind. Today's episode featured music from purpleplanet.com. Please send us your questions for our upcoming talkback episode at info@chasingthemind.com. And don't forget to tweet us a movie at #DiagnoseThisMovie.
Okay, wait a second,
Me
Laura.
too. Thank
We're done.
you.
We're done. But Laura,
Okay.
So there's one thing I have to tell you, okay?
Yeah.
So this is off the record. So
Okay.
in Sweet Reality, the beginning part, I have to tell you, there's one thing that stuck with me through the entire book. And I just want to tell you because it's just driving me crazy. So, at the beginning when they go in and Sarah shows them the shop and everything, and they have all the cupcakes and all that stuff and all the stuff she's baked.
Yep.
Would she really freeze the stuff though?
Oh, yes, you do.
Really?
Like for
The
a
place where I buy all my baked goods has all their stuff frozen. But They make it
Really?
and they freeze it and they bring it out. Yeah.
I did not know, because I'm like, at the whole book, I'm thinking, I don't know if you would freeze stuff for an opening. Like, what would the texture be like? Like, it really bothered me through the whole book. And so I'm like, I have to mention it to Laura and just make sure that she, like, if this is what they do, because I just don't know. And
Angela actually called me up to discuss this. She was like, wow, the book is really good, but
this part about the freezing the cupcakes really disturbs me.
Like, is the texture going to be off? Like, it's a grand opening. She really needs to put her best foot forward. Are frozen cupcakes going to put her best
I was
foot
very
forward?
invested. I was
She
very
really
invested
was.
in
She really
like,
was.
I appreciate that.
and just, you might want to stick around. Are you serious, Barkley? From a movie, TV, literary, we could even diagnose someone from a commercial. If you really want us to, I have some opinions about Flo. I'll just tell you that right now.
Okay, I like Flo. We're going to have to throw down about Flo.